everyone, my name is Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to paint a super simple watercolor pine cone. On one of my recent videos I got a comment from Joanne Lucy 9540 who is requesting this, so here is your tutorial. Let's get started. For supplies today, you guys will need 2 cups of water. I have one for clean water, one for dirty. I have a napkin for drying my paintbrushes. Paintbrushes today, I'm using Opus Allegro's numbers 2 and 4. For paint, I'm using Philosophy and Co's Woodlands palette. Sort of a combination of colors, but mostly the brown tones that are in here, as well as the deep moss. And for paper, I have 140-pound cold press watercolor paper. So the first thing that we're going to do for this tutorial is draw just a super light, simple oval shape so that we know where we're going to put our pine cone. So on my paper here, I'm going to draw really light, kind of think of an egg shape. And that is going to be our guide for our pine cone. So now that I have done that, I'm going to go in with my paint. I'm going to take some of my redwood paint here and a little bit of the cavern. And the first layer that I'm painting, I'm actually going to start with it really watered down. And the idea is that we're painting just a whole bunch of little triangles, sort of working from the top all the way down. So I can put a very little one at the top of where I've drawn my circle. And I'm just gonna work my way down with these shapes. So I'm doing it really light, just so that I have lots of room to add darker color in, so that you can really see the ridges. And as I go down and paint these shapes, I'm gonna make them bigger towards the bottom. So I can kind of stagger them however I want. It's fine if they're not all super even. And I'm also not being too particular about these triangles. I just wanna get that loose shape in first, so that we can paint the rest of the pine cone in using that as our guide. So my shapes are getting bigger, and then as I head towards the bottom, I'm actually going to make them smaller and closer together again. So I'm just going to mix some more of my colors over here. And now we're going to start making those shapes a little closer together. So you can see I've sort of clustered them towards the bottom here. And again, I say triangle shapes, but as I come down, sort of turns into more just blobs of color. But the idea is that I'm following that general shape, and as I add more shading in, we'll add more definition to those. Okay, so now we're gonna let this first layer dry, and then we'll go in and add some more paint. So while that's drying, I'm gonna start by mixing the color that I wanna use for my second layer of paint. So I use sort of more of an orangey tone for this first layer. I'm gonna go a little bit more into a deeper brown. So if you're using this palette specifically, I'm mixing together the bear and cavern colors. And I want it to be darker than that first layer that I painted, but I'm not gonna go too dark right off the bat because I still do want to work on adding layers to build depth to our pine cone. So we are gonna start from the very top where this first triangle is. I am gonna paint a shape coming in from it. So the idea is that my darker brown is gonna outline kind of that triangle shape that I have. And I'm gonna paint in sort of a stem coming down from it, I think is the best way to explain it. But you guys can see in the video what I'm doing. So I just have some hair on there. Okay, so from each of these shapes, I'm just painting down. So I'm still keeping that triangular shape. And then the idea is that I'm painting stems coming down. So I'm curving them in. And each one that I paint sort of comes down and will attach to the next one, just to really fill in my space. So I find that this is one of those things that you paint where right away, I'm like hesitant, not sure what I think of it, but each layer that you add is just gonna add more definition, and it's gonna give it the look that we want it to. So just filling in those white spaces. I'm just gonna mix some more paint onto my palette here. And I'm just gonna work the whole way down, continuing the same thing. And you'll notice as we come towards the bottom, the shapes are gonna get smaller just because I had clustered together those initial triangles more. So now as I get closer to the bottom, instead of painting such a specific shape, I'm essentially just trying to outline what I already painted with this brown color that I've mixed. So it's a little bit more of just filling in the gaps, but I'm still being careful to leave some white spaces in here, just because I want everything to stand out. So here I can give some more definition to my shapes as well, and just paint around them. So now that I've done that, what I want to do is go into all of my white spaces, and with some really watered down brown paint, so it has less of that orange tone, I'm just going to fill them in. Usually when you hold up a pine cone, it's not completely translucent to the other side, so I do want to get rid of some of that white space, just to get rid of the illusion that you can see fully through it. So I'm just filling it in with a nice light color, but I'm still making sure that it's a different color from those initial shapes that I painted, so that those are still standing out. Okay, so now that I've done this, I'm gonna paint a branch along the bottom, and then we're gonna go back and we're gonna add some more details. So I can go in with my brown paint again, and I'm just gonna go and paint a nice loose branch coming up, attaching to it. So really just a squiggly line, however you want. And then we're gonna add some pine needles to it. So I'm gonna make it a little bit wider. And now I can go in with my green paint. The green that I have on here, the deep moss, is pretty bright. So I'm actually gonna mix it with some brown just to tone it down a little bit and give it more of a natural look. Okay, so once I've done that, I have it dark on my paintbrush, and I'm just gonna paint lines sort of in a feather-like way. For this one specifically, I'm using more of a dry brushing technique just because it gives the pine needles more texture. So that means that I have more paint on my paintbrush and not a ton of water. So I'm just gonna do this most of the way down the branch, probably not all the way. And continuing with the lines stemming out from my main stem. The idea is they're not all super stiff and rigid. I kind of have them facing different directions. That's why the easiest way to compare it to is, yeah, if you look at a feather, where everything is really soft and light and just smoothly coming out from the center point. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm gonna go back into my pine cone, and already by the time that's all dried and I've added the branch, it's come to life so much more, but I wanna add a little bit more depth. So we're gonna go in with brown. And the idea is that I'm going over those, so the first shapes that I painted were the really light ones. The second ones were the pieces that sort of stem down from those light shapes. So now I want to add a little bit more to where those are that I've painted them. So sort of the idea is that they get darker towards the bottom, just because they are more contrasted, first of all, with the tips of the pine cone. I should look it up and see what that's called, but yeah, the idea is that that'll give it the look that it's shadowed inside and you can see the shape sticking out, see the depth and texture. So I'm adding my dark brown right along the bottom of these shapes that I painted. Yeah, if anyone in the comments can tell me what the parts of a pine cone are called, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But I'm adding, again, so the dark paint just to the base, and it's right against the light color that's underneath. So you see right away how that stands out so much more. And essentially what I'm doing, I'm not even blending it, I'm just adding patches of color. So I'm doing a smooth line where it's right against the light color, and then I'm just sort of brushing it up with my paintbrush. And I'm just going to work my way along all of these shapes. So you guys can see that as I do that, it just starts to stand out so much more. And with this whole painting, I'm not doing anything that's super fine, super detailed. But the idea is that by keeping my lightest lights how they are and adding the dark values, then it's just gonna make everything stand out so much more. So I'm just gonna finish these last few shapes here, and then we are going to be all done with our pine cone. So as I head towards the bottom, just because everything is a little more crowded, the idea is just that I'm sticking my darker brown in patches into this bottom section. Again, just to make everything stand out a bit more, but I really want to make sure that I'm still letting that light brown show through. You'll find that if you're painting with watercolor as you paint, that is one of the most important things to just help bring your paintings to life, is to really focus on where you're putting the light colors, where you're putting the dark colors. And yeah, it just makes everything stand out so much more. Okay, so I've now made it all the way to the bottom of my pine cone. I'm just gonna add a tiny bit of brown into my branches here, just to give them a little bit more interest. So I'm not doing a ton, but I'm just dry brushing some of it in. And we are all done painting our watercolor pine cone. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you followed along, make sure to take a picture, send it to me on Instagram, or tag me at Alexandra Victoria Studio. I absolutely love to see what you guys are painting, so please do share. And if you guys have things that you want to learn, I want to teach you, so leave a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to learn next. And if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. See you next time.